What happens inside you when someone disrespects your silence, thinking it means you're weak, small, or easy to control? That single moment reveals more about your inner power than anything you say out loud, because silence is not the absence of strength. Silence is where strength gathers, sharpens, and decides how it wants to move forward. And when you use silence with intention, you confuse anyone who tries to cross you because they expect noise, chaos, and emotional reactions. Instead, they face a calm they cannot interpret, and that calm exposes every flaw in their behavior. Most people are loud when they feel threatened. They argue, they defend, they try to prove their worth. But you already know that when you respond with noise, you give away your energy. When you respond with silence, you reclaim it. Your silence becomes a mirror that forces others to sit with themselves, to confront their own actions, without your emotional labor softening the truth. It creates a mental space they can't control, and that loss of control unsettles them more than any words ever could. Silence is not withdrawal. It is strategic. It is conscious. It is a decision that says, I will not let your behavior pull me down into a level that doesn't match who I am. The moment you choose silence over reaction, you break patterns that manipulative people depend on. They want you emotional because emotional people are easier to steer. But a calm mind is unpredictable. A calm mind cannot be manipulated. A calm mind is powerful enough to walk away if needed. This is why your silence feels so confusing to those who cross you. They're waiting for you to lash out. They're waiting for drama. They're waiting for emotional validation of their own behavior. But you give them nothing. And in that nothing, they start to question everything. Did you see through their intentions? Did their words fail to shake you? Did you decide they aren't worth your voice? That uncertainty eats at them because silence forces them into a confrontation with themselves they never wanted. Your silence also protects your dignity. It prevents you from reacting in ways you'll regret. It keeps your power internal, not scattered across arguments that don't deserve you. And when people watch you stay composed, while they lose their emotional balance, they realize they never had the control they thought they did. That realization is where your strength becomes undeniable. If you've ever wondered why silence feels like strength, this is why. It keeps your energy sacred. It gives your mind space to think clearly. It reminds you that not everyone deserves access to your emotional world. And most importantly, it teaches others that your response is a privilege, not a guarantee. Stay with this message till the end, because once you master the art of intentional silence, you'll begin to understand a truth that changes everything. The less you react, the more power you hold. And the more power you hold, the more you rise above people who were never meant to walk beside you. When you choose silence, you reclaim power. But when you choose logic over emotion, you elevate yourself to a level most people never learn to reach. Because nothing confuses someone who tries to cross you more than a calm, rational response delivered at the very moment they expect chaos. They anticipate anger. They prepare for defensiveness. They brace for emotional heat. But instead you offer clarity, measured, controlled, and untouched by the pressure they try to place on you. That shift is psychological. People rely on predictable emotional patterns when they try to manipulate or provoke. They expect you to be reactive because reactivity gives them leverage. The moment you step outside that pattern, the entire dynamic crumbles. You become the one who sees clearly while they become the one who stumbles. That is the power of leading with logic. You remove the fuel that emotional manipulators rely on, and without fuel, they cannot maintain control. When you respond with logic, you respond with truth, not the truth shaped by impulse, but the truth shaped by awareness. You separate how you feel from what is real. You stay grounded in facts, not assumptions, and you refuse to let anyone drag you into a fight built on emotional distortion. That clarity is intimidating to someone who crossed you, because it exposes their intentions without you raising your voice. It forces them to stand in the open, stripped of excuses. This kind of response isn't cold. And it isn't detached. It's powerful. It shows that you've learned how to protect your peace without becoming numb. It shows that you understand yourself well enough not to react from a wounded place. And it shows that your self-respect runs deeper than any temporary emotion. People underestimate the strength it takes to stay logical when someone pushes your boundaries. They forget that emotional discipline is not the absence of feeling. It's the mastery of feeling. When you speak with reason instead of reaction, you shift the emotional weight back onto the other person. They can no longer blame your anger, twist your words, or hide behind the intensity of your response. They're forced to face the conversation for what it is. And that alone creates discomfort because truth delivered without rage is truth that cannot be dismissed. It lingers, it reveals, it confronts. You confuse them because you don't give them the one thing they came for, emotional control. You don't give them chaos to escalate. You don't give them pain to manipulate. You don't give them insecurity to feed on. Instead, you stand firm in your clarity, and clarity is something they cannot distort. The real transformation begins when you realize that logic protects your spirit as much as it strengthens your voice. It stops you from absorbing energy that isn't yours. It keeps your identity intact. It teaches you to see intentions clearly instead of reacting to words designed to provoke you. And the moment you embrace this level of emotional discipline, you rise above conflicts that could have drained you, broken you, or pulled you into patterns that don't align with who you truly are. Stay with this mindset because when you learn to respond with reason instead of reactivity, you stop being someone people can play with and start becoming someone they respect, even if they never admit it out loud. There comes a moment when your calm logic settles into something even stronger, the ability to enforce your boundaries without defending them, justifying them, or explaining them to anyone. This is where your power becomes unmistakable, because nothing confuses someone who tries to cross you more than realizing you don't feel obligated to negotiate your worth. You don't argue for your space. You don't debate your limits. You simply establish them through action. And that alone forces people to confront the reality of who you are. Most people are conditioned to expect explanations. They want reasons they can pick apart, emotions they can manipulate, loopholes they can exploit. They want you to soften your boundaries so they can test how far they can push you. But when you stand firm without bending, you disrupt the entire psychological game. You show that your self-respect isn't up for discussion, and that clarity unsettles the very people who thought they could take advantage of your patience. A boundary doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes the quietest limits are the most unshakable because they come from deep self-awareness. They come from knowing what you will and will not allow. They come from valuing your peace more than someone else's approval. And when someone crosses you, you don't rush to correct them. You simply adjust your access to match their behavior. That shift alone sends a message stronger than any confrontation ever could. This confuses people because it denies them the conflict they were prepared for. They expect you to plead, justify, or engage. But you don't. You move with conviction instead of reaction. You show that your boundaries aren't emotional. They're principles. And principles don't change based on who challenges them. You don't raise your voice. You raise your standards, and people who once believed they had power over you suddenly feel the weight of their own choices. When you enforce boundaries without explanation, you reclaim your time, your emotional space, and your mental clarity. You stop trying to be understood by people who aren't willing to understand themselves. You stop carrying the burden of making others comfortable at the expense of your own well-being. And you teach everyone around you that access to you is earned, not entitled. This is where your inner transformation deepens, because you begin to realize that boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They don't shut people out, they protect what's sacred within you. They don't make you cold, they make you clear. They don't make you difficult, they make you discerning. And people who once underestimated you start to see that you are not someone who can be manipulated into lowering your standards. Your boundaries become a reflection of your growth. They show that you've outgrown environments that require you to shrink. They show that you've learned the difference between kindness and self-neglect. They show that you're no longer available for situations that drain you, disrespect you, or diminish your sense of self. And the moment you live from that place, you become someone people think twice before crossing. This is the quiet strength that makes you powerful, the confidence that speaks without noise, the clarity that protects you without anger. And once you embrace this level of self-respect, you stop explaining your limits and start embodying them. You stop trying to be understood and start choosing to be at peace. There is a deeper level of strength that few people ever reach, and it becomes visible the moment you stop seeking revenge and start choosing elevation instead. This is the point where your boundaries are solid, your clarity is steady, and your energy is untouchable. And nothing confuses someone who tried to cross you more than realizing you're not interested in hurting them back. You're not plotting, you're not chasing justice, and you're not waiting for karma to unfold. You've simply moved on, and that decision carries more power than any retaliation ever could. People expect anger when they betray you. They expect you to retaliate, to react, to prove that they mattered enough to wound. But when you rise above their behavior and focus on your growth instead of their downfall, you take away the control they thought they had. You refuse to let their actions define your next move. You refuse to let their disrespect shape your identity. You refuse to give them the emotional battle they hoped would drain you. Choosing not to fight back isn't weakness, it is wisdom. It is the understanding that revenge keeps you tied to the very people who tried to break you. It locks your energy into a story that doesn't deserve your attention. But walking away, healing and transforming turns the entire situation into fuel for your own evolution. And that evolution is what truly unsettles those who tried to harm you. They expect to feel victorious. Instead, they feel invisible. They expect you to stay wounded. Instead, you grow stronger. They expect you to chase closure. Instead, you create your own. When you choose self-improvement over retaliation, you break the emotional chain that keeps so many people stuck. You prove to yourself that your future matters more than your pain. You prove that your peace is more valuable than your pride. And you prove that your power comes not from controlling others, but from controlling yourself. That clarity is rare. That discipline is rare. That emotional maturity is rare. And it leaves those who crossed you questioning whether they ever truly understood the person they tried to hurt. The truth is, people fear the consequences of their own actions far more than they fear your retaliation. When you don't respond with revenge, you leave them alone with their choices. You give them nothing to blame, nothing to attack, nothing to deflect onto you. They are forced to face themselves. And that internal confrontation is something many people spend their whole lives avoiding. Your silence, your growth, your refusal to retaliate. These become the mirrors they cannot escape. Your focus shifts to your own life, your own expansion, your own healing. And as you rise, you reveal something powerful. You didn't need to strike back to win. You didn't need to destroy them to prove your strength. You didn't need revenge to restore your value. You simply reclaimed your power by refusing to let their actions dictate your direction. That is what confuses them. That is what humbles them. That is what transforms you. This is where you become untouchable. This is where your spirit transcends the limitations others tried to impose. And this is where you realize that the greatest revenge will always be your ability to walk forward with your head high, your heart steady, and your life moving in a direction they can no longer reach. There is a unique kind of strength that emerges when you no longer fear the loss of people who don't value you. It is the strength that shows itself the moment you decide to walk away without hesitation, without begging, and without looking back. And nothing confuses someone who tried to cross you more than realizing you aren't afraid to leave them behind. They expected attachment. They expected dependence. They expected you to fight for a place in their life even after they disrespected you. But instead, you choose yourself. And that choice shakes the foundation of their expectations. Walking away is not about giving up. It is about recognizing that your peace is worth more than their inconsistency. It is about understanding that staying in a space where you are not respected slowly erodes your self-worth. And it is about refusing to shrink yourself for the sake of someone else's comfort. When you leave with clarity, you send a message that cannot be misunderstood. Your value is not negotiable. People often mistake your silence for tolerance, your boundaries for flexibility, and your patience for permission. But the moment you walk away, they realize how badly they misread your strength. They thought you needed them. They thought you would stay, no matter how they treated you. But when you remove your presence, they are forced to feel the absence of something they never fully appreciated. And that absence becomes the lesson they never expected to learn. Your departure disrupts the illusion they built. It confronts their ego. It strips away the belief that they could cross you without consequence. Because while you may not seek revenge, you do enforce accountability through distance. And distance is powerful. Distance makes them realize what they lost. Distance gives them space to understand the impact of their actions. Distance forces them to sit with the truth that you are the one thing they could not replace. Walking away without fear also reshapes how you see yourself. It shows you that your worth isn't tied to anyone's approval. It proves that your happiness is not dependent on someone else's presence. And it reminds you that detachment is not coldness, it is self-respect. You stop fighting for people who refuse to fight for you. You stop waiting for behavior that should have been there from the beginning. You stop giving your loyalty to those who haven't earned it. This kind of strength confuses those who crossed you because they expected you to crumble. They expected you to linger in pain. They expected you to fall into the trap of trying to win back someone who never valued what you gave. But when you walk away, you show them that your spirit cannot be broken by someone who never understood it. You show them that you don't chase what harms you. You don't cling to what drains you. You don't stay where your heart isn't honored. And as you continue forward, you begin to feel a deeper truth rising within you. Leaving isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your alignment. It's the moment you step into relationships, opportunities, and environments that reflect the strength you've built. It's the moment you claim the life you deserve instead of settling for the one you were handed. And it's the moment anyone who tried to cross you finally learns that losing you was their mistake, not your loss. There is a level of inner strength that becomes unshakable once you stop needing anyone to validate you, approve of you, or choose you. It forms the moment you realize that your worth was never meant to be measured by someone else's perception. And nothing confuses someone who tried to cross you more than recognizing that they have no power over your emotional world. They cannot control your peace. They cannot influence your confidence. They cannot shape the way you see yourself. Because you've built something they cannot access, emotional self-sufficiency. People who try to manipulate or disrespect you rely on one thing, your need for their approval. They assume you depend on their validation to feel enough. They expect you to fear their rejection. They assume you will bend just to stay connected. But when you rise into emotional independence, you remove the very leverage they thought they had. You strip away their influence, not through confrontation, but through self-assurance. And that quiet, steady strength destabilizes anyone who believed they could shake you. Emotional self-sufficiency doesn't mean you don't care. It means you no longer surrender your identity for acceptance. It means your self-worth comes from within, not from reactions, not from opinions, not from temporary affection. It means your emotional world is built on foundations you've strengthened through clarity, boundary setting, and healing. And when someone crosses you, you don't collapse. You return to that foundation and stand taller. This confuses them because they expect you to fall apart without their presence. They expect you to chase reassurance, to seek closure, to cling to what hurt you, but instead you move forward with a calm that reveals how deeply you trust yourself. That calm shows that you know who you are, you know what you deserve, you know what you will not allow. And nothing disrupts someone's ego more than realizing their behavior means nothing to someone they tried to control. When you become emotionally self-sufficient, you stop reacting to things that once triggered you. You stop internalizing people's disrespect. You stop believing that someone's inability to value you is a reflection of your worth. You begin to protect your peace with intention, not fear. You start to walk through life with a confidence that doesn't need to be seen or praised. It simply exists, steady and grounded. People feel this shift. They feel it in your tone, your presence, your decisions. They sense that you no longer depend on them for emotional stability, and that realization forces them to confront their own insecurities. Because when they lose the ability to influence your emotions, they lose the illusion of control they once believed they had. Your independence exposes the weakness in their attempts to manipulate you. Your strength highlights the truth they tried to hide. You were always the powerful one. And as you continue embracing this emotional self-sufficiency, something even more profound happens. You begin to attract people who respect your strength instead of fearing it, who value your presence instead of exploiting it, who meet you with reciprocity instead of expectation. You shift into a life where love is chosen, not begged for, where respect is mutual, not demanded, where peace is consistent, not conditional. This is the point where anyone who tried to cross you finally understands why they failed, not because you were unbreakable from the start, but because you chose to build yourself into someone whose value doesn't depend on anyone else's ability to see it. Once you've mastered silence, logic, boundaries, rising above revenge, walking away, and emotional independence, you reach a place where your presence alone is a force that commands respect. You realize that your power isn't about what you do to others. It's about what you refuse to let others do to you. And nothing confuses someone who tried to cross you more than realizing that no manipulation, no intimidation, no expectation can shake the foundation you've built within yourself. You have become untouchable, not because you seek to dominate, but because you have mastered yourself. Your life becomes a reflection of clarity, strength, and intention. Every decision, every interaction, every moment of energy you give is filtered through the lens of self-respect. You no longer waste time on people who do not align with your values, on situations that do not honor your peace, on drama that does not serve your growth. And in that discipline, you create a presence that others cannot predict, control, or influence. You are a living reminder that power does not require aggression, but consistency. That strength does not demand recognition, but radiates naturally. People who try to cross you expect volatility. They expect dependence. They expect their actions to provoke a reaction that feeds their ego. But when you operate from this level of self-mastery, they encounter something entirely different, a calm authority that cannot be intimidated. You hold your energy close. You hold your standards high. You hold your attention selectively. And in that quiet, unshakable presence, they feel the full weight of their own misjudgment. Confusion becomes their only response because they have no control over someone who controls herself completely. This mastery is not born from perfection, but from choice. Every day you choose to honor your mind over manipulation, your heart over chaos, your worth over convenience. You choose to see the truth behind actions rather than react to appearances. You choose to protect your emotional world instead of giving it away. And each choice strengthens the invisible armor that makes you formidable. You become someone who cannot be diminished by another person's lack of integrity, because your self-respect is rooted far deeper than their behavior could ever reach. When you understand this, you see that your life is no longer defined by what others do to you. It is defined by what you do with your own power. You walk through the world unshaken, unwavering, and unapologetically aligned with your values, and those who attempt to test, cross, or undermine you are met not with aggression, but with a presence that holds its own weight and shifts the balance entirely. They cannot predict your next move because your actions are governed by principle, not provocation. Your consistency becomes their challenge, your calm their frustration, and your strength their undeniable truth. This level of self-mastery rewires the way you interact with life. It teaches you that influence is earned through integrity, not intimidation. That respect is commanded through self-discipline, not threats. That fear dissolves when you realize that your greatest power comes from controlling your mind, protecting your energy, and elevating yourself continuously. And in this clarity, you discover a freedom that no one can take away, a confidence that no one can shake, and a life that no one can dictate. The ultimate realization is this: you are no longer defined by the people who tried to cross you. You are defined by your own choices, your own strength, and the unwavering truth of who you have become. And once you embrace that fully, you become a force so rare, so confident, so self-contained that confusion and respect follow you effortlessly wherever you go.